The wine glass hit the table harder than it should have. My husband Caleb stood up, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "I sold your little cabin for $20,000, he announced to the entire table. His family erupted.
Cheers.
Applause. His mother Lucinda actually clapped her hands together like she was at the opera. Finally, his brother Marcus shouted. "About damn time," his sister-in-law Jennifer chimed in. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, watching them celebrate like I wasn't even in the room. The chandelier above us sparkled, casting shadows across their excited faces. Caleb's eyes found mine across the table, and that smirk, God, that smirk, told me everything I needed to know. He thought he'd won. The money for this dinner? He raised his glass higher. "It's from the cabin sale. At least one meal is covered." More laughter. Louder this time. His mother leaned toward me, her pearl necklace catching the light. "Maybe now you can contribute something real to this family, Alara." I smiled. Not because I agreed. Not because I was happy. But because 3 days from now, that same smile would haunt every single person at this table. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. I picked up my water glass, not the champagne they kept refilling, and took a slow sip. "Enjoy it while it lasts," I said quietly. Nobody heard me. Or maybe they did, and just didn't care. See, that cabin wasn't just some rundown shack in the woods like they all thought. It was built by my father's hands. Every log, every nail, every window frame. He died 5 years ago, and that cabin was the only piece of him I had left. But here's what Caleb didn't know, what none of them knew. That cabin sat on land my father registered under federal environmental protection before he passed. Protected land. Untouchable land. Land that required government clearance to sell. And the signature on that transfer document? The one Caleb waved around like a trophy? I never signed it. I watched him toast with his brothers, watched his mother dab her eyes like she was proud, watched them all stuff their faces with $100 steaks paid for with money that wasn't theirs. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Caleb's phone lit up on the table. He frowned, glanced at the screen. Then his face went pale. He excused himself and stepped outside. Through the restaurant window, I could see him pacing, his hand running through his hair the way it always did when he was panicking. When he came back inside, his hands were shaking. "Everything okay?" I asked sweetly. He didn't answer. Just sat down and drained his wine glass in one gulp. His phone rang again. This time he answered it right there at the table.
"What?"
"No, that's impossible." The voice on the other end was loud enough for me to hear. Frantic. Angry. "Mr. Hartwell, why are the authorities at our office?" The table went silent. Everyone stared at Caleb. He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear in his eyes. What happens when a man who thinks he's untouchable realizes he just committed a federal crime? Caleb's hand trembled as he held the phone to his ear. The lawyer's voice kept getting louder, angrier. Everyone at the table had stopped eating, forks frozen in midair. "There must be some mistake," Caleb said, but his voice cracked on the last word. His brother Marcus leaned forward. "What's going on?" Caleb hung up without answering. He turned to me slowly, like he was afraid of what he'd see in my face. "Did you do something?" I dabbed my napkin at the corner of my mouth. "Do something? Like what?" "With the cabin. With the paperwork." His jaw clenched. "Did you call someone?" His mother's eyes darted between us. "Caleb, what is this about?" "Nothing," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Just a misunderstanding with the buyer's office." But it wasn't nothing. And we both knew it. I'd grown up in Hollow Ridge, a mountain town where winter came early and stayed late. My dad Ronan was the kind of man who believed your word was your bond and your land was your legacy. When Mom died, it was just us two. We built that cabin together over 3 summers, him teaching me how to measure twice and cut once, how to read the grain of the wood, how to make something that would last. "Alara," he'd said while we hammered the last board into place, Someday someone's gonna try to take what's yours. Don't fight loud. Fight smart. I was 16 then. Didn't understand what he meant. Now I did. Caleb stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need to make a call. He walked toward the exit, phone already pressed to his ear. Jennifer, his sister-in-law, leaned across the table. Is everything all right with you two? I smiled. Everything's perfect. But Marcus wasn't buying it. That didn't sound like nothing. Lucinda waved her hand dismissively. I'm sure it's just buyer's remorse or some paperwork nonsense. These things happen with property sales. She looked at me pointedly, especially with old properties that haven't been properly maintained. The cabin was maintained perfectly. My father had taught me that too. Through the window, I watched Caleb pace back and forth on the sidewalk. His free hand kept running through his hair, pulling at it. He was scared. Good. A week ago, I'd found the document on his desk. A property transfer form with my signature at the bottom. Except I'd never signed anything. The handwriting was good, really good. He'd practiced. The little loop in my E, the way my R tilted slightly right. Almost perfect. When I confronted him, he'd kissed my forehead like I was confused. Babe, you're stressed. You told me to handle it, remember? I didn't remember, because it never happened. That night, I checked the lockbox under our bed, where I kept my father's important documents. The cabin deed was gone. I should have screamed. Should have called the police right then. But something stopped me. A voice in my head that sounded like my dad's. Fight smart, not loud. So I waited. Caleb came back inside, his face gray. He didn't sit down. We need to go. But we haven't had dessert, his mother protested.
Now, Elara.
We're leaving now. I took my time standing up, folding my napkin neatly beside my plate. Thank you all for a lovely evening. In the car, Caleb didn't speak. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We'd been driving for 10 minutes when he finally broke the silence. The buyer's lawyer says there's a problem with the land. Something about federal protection. I looked out the window at the passing streetlights.
Oh, that.
His head snapped toward me. You knew. Of course I knew. My father registered the land under an environmental preservation trust before he died. It's protected wetlands. Can't be sold without government clearance. I kept my voice calm, casual. I thought you knew that. The car swerved slightly. What? It's public record, Caleb. Anyone doing basic research would have found it. His breathing got faster. But the deed. The deed you took from my lockbox? I turned to look at him now. The one you forged my signature on? He went silent. That's a felony, you know. Forging someone's signature on a government-protected property transfer. The car pulled over suddenly, tires screeching. We were on a side street, dark except for one flickering streetlight. Caleb gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought it might break. You set me up. I shook my head.
No.
You set yourself up. I just didn't stop you. His phone rang again. Then again. Then a third time. He ignored all of them. How much trouble am I in? His voice was barely a whisper. I opened the car door. More than you can imagine. Have you ever watched someone realize they've destroyed their own life? I stayed at my friend Maya's apartment that night. Didn't pack much, just enough for a few days. Maya met me at the door with wine and questions, but I wasn't ready to talk yet. Girl, what happened? She asked, following me to the guest room. Remember how I told you Caleb was acting weird? The cabin thing? I nodded. He sold it. Or tried to. Maya's eyes went wide. Your dad's cabin? The one that's protected land. Yeah. She sat down hard on the bed. Oh my God. Did he know? Nope. I pulled out my phone and showed her the forged document I'd photographed before he could hide it. But he knew he was forging my signature. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Elara, this is serious. Like prison serious. I knew. I'd spent the last week researching. Forgery of legal documents.
Fraud.
Attempted sale of federal protected property. The charges stacked up like firewood. My phone buzzed.
Caleb.
I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, I answered. What? We need to talk. Please. I can explain. Explain what? How you stole my father's deed. How you forged my signature. How you sold property that wasn't yours. My voice stayed level, cold. I was going to tell you. I just needed. Needed what? Money? For what, Caleb? Silence. For what? I repeated. A down payment, he finally said. On a property. An investment opportunity. It was going to make us rich, Alara. I was doing it for us.
Us.
Like I was part of his scheme. The buyer wants their money back, he continued. And the lawyer says there might be an investigation. But if you just tell them it was a misunderstanding, that you knew about the sale. I hung up. Maya was staring at me. He wants you to lie for him? Apparently. Are you going to? I thought about my father. About the summers we spent building that cabin. About how he'd saved every penny to buy that land. How he'd researched for months to get it properly protected so no developer could ever touch it. No, I said. I'm not. The next morning, 2 federal investigators showed up at Caleb's office. I know because his brother Marcus called me, furious. What did you do? He shouted into the phone. I told the truth. You're destroying him. Destroying this family. He destroyed himself when he forged my signature. Marcus sputtered. That cabin was worthless anyway. You're being selfish. I'd heard that word my whole marriage. Selfish for wanting to keep my father's legacy. Selfish for not giving Caleb access to my savings. Selfish for having boundaries. Tell your brother to get a good lawyer, I said and hung up. By afternoon, the story was spreading. Caleb's colleagues started hearing about the investigation. His mother called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Maya came home from work with groceries and more wine. It's all over town. My coworker's husband works at the federal building. He says they're looking at fraud charges. I stared at the ceiling. Part of me felt guilty. The other part remembered that dinner, remembered them laughing while Caleb announced he'd sold my father's memory for $20,000. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I asked. Maya didn't hesitate. Yes. His family thinks I'm ruining his life. His family cheered when he sold your cabin without permission. She poured wine into 2 glasses. They don't get to play victim now. She was right, but knowing that didn't make it easier.
My phone rang.
Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Hartwell? This is Agent Morrison with the Federal Land Management Office. My stomach dropped. Yes. We need to ask you some questions about the attempted sale of property on Hemlock Lake. Can you come in tomorrow? Could I refuse? Did I want to? What time? I asked. After I hung up, Maya looked at me with concern. What did they say? They want to talk tomorrow. Are you in trouble? I shook my head. I don't think so. The property's in my name. I never authorized the sale. But my hands were shaking anyway. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Caleb, about how he'd kissed me on our wedding day and promised to protect what was mine. About how his family had smiled at me while planning to drain everything I had. About how my father had warned me this would happen someday. Around 3 a.m, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood went cold. What would you do if you discovered the betrayal went deeper than you thought? The text message had no words, just an image, a bank statement, Caleb's account, and a transaction from 6 months ago, a withdrawal of $50,000 with the memo line reading, Hartwell Properties Investment. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. $50,000? The cabin was only sold for $20,000. Another text came through, then another. More bank statements, more transactions, amounts that made my head spin. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moving in and out of accounts I never heard of. The last text finally had words. You should ask your husband about the mansion. A friend. I couldn't breathe. What mansion? Maya woke up when I stumbled into her room at 3:30 a.m, phone clutched in my shaking hand. She read the messages, her face getting paler with each one. Alara, this is bigger than the cabin. I knew. God, I knew. At 9 the next morning, I sat across from Agent Morrison in a gray office that smelled like burnt coffee and old files. He was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes that had seen too many liars. "Mrs. Hartwell, you understand you're not under investigation?" I nodded.
Good.
"We just need to confirm a few things." He slid a document across the table. "The forged transfer form. Is this your signature?" I looked at it carefully. The handwriting was so close to mine, it was creepy.
No.
"Someone forged it. Your husband?" "Yes." He made note. "Were you aware your husband was attempting to sell this property?" "Not until after he'd already done it. He announced it at a family dinner." Agent Morrison's eyebrow went up. "He announced it publicly?" "To his entire family." They applauded. He leaned back. "Mrs. Hartwell, are you aware that your husband submitted this sale as part of a larger financial package to secure a commercial loan?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "He used the cabin sale, or the promise of it, as collateral for a loan of $300,000. The room spun. $300,000? For what? I whispered. Agent Morrison pulled out another file. A property development deal. He and his brothers were planning to purchase and flip a mansion in the historic district. The mansion. The anonymous texts made sense now. So, the $20,000 for my cabin was just the down payment he needed to look legitimate to the bank. The real plan was much bigger. I felt sick. This wasn't about one cabin. This was about Caleb using everything I owned to fund some scheme with his brothers. "Is he going to prison?" I asked. Agent Morrison's face was unreadable. "That depends on several factors. But Mrs. Hartwell, you should know, we've been investigating financial irregularities at his firm for 3 months now. This cabin situation just opened up a much larger case." I blinked. "What kind of irregularities?" "Embezzlement. Your husband has been moving money from client accounts to fund personal investments. The cabin sale was meant to cover the shortfall before anyone noticed. The walls felt like they were closing in. Caleb wasn't just a cheating husband who forged my signature. He was a criminal. How much did he steal?" My voice sounded far away. "We're still calculating, but preliminary numbers suggest over $500,000. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. Agent Morrison reached out to steady me. "I know this is a shock. I need to go." He handed me his card. "If you remember anything else, or if your husband contacts you, please call me immediately." I drove back to Maya's in a daze. $500,000. Client money. Embezzlement.
Fraud. Forgery.
The man I married wasn't who I thought he was. Maybe he never had been. When I got back, Maya was pacing. "You have to see this." She turned her laptop toward me. A local news website. The headline made my vision blur. "Local businessman under federal investigation for fraud." There was Caleb's photo.
His office building.
And a statement from his firm saying they were cooperating fully with authorities. My phone exploded. Calls from his mother. His brothers. Numbers I didn't recognize. Everyone wanted to know what I knew, what I'd said, whether I was going to stand by him. I turned my phone off. "What are you going to do?" Maya asked gently. I thought about my father again. About the cabin still standing by the lake. About how he'd built something meant to last, while Caleb had built nothing but lies. "I'm going to let the truth do what it is best," I said. That night, Caleb showed up at Maya's apartment. I heard him before I saw him, his voice echoing in the hallway, demanding to see me. Maya blocked the door. "She doesn't want to talk to you." "That's my wife. That's a woman you lied to and stole from." I appeared behind Maya. Caleb looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red, shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Elara, please. Just hear me out. I heard you out at the federal office today. Or did you forget they're investigating you for embezzlement?" His face crumpled. "I can explain. You stole from your clients. You forged my signature. You tried to sell my father's land to cover your theft." My voice stayed steady. "What exactly do you think you can explain?" "I was going to pay it all back. The mansion deal was going to make millions. I just needed time. Time you bought with my property." He stepped forward. Maya tensed, but I put my hand on her shoulder. "Don't come here again," I said. "Talk to your lawyer. Talk to the investigators. But don't talk to me." I closed the door while he was still pleading. Through the door, I heard him say one last thing that made my blood run cold. "My mother knows where the cabin is." I was in my car before Maya could stop me. The drive to Hollow Ridge usually took 2 hours, but I made it in 90 minutes, my heart pounding the entire way. What did he mean his mother knew where the cabin was? Was that a threat? The mountain road twisted upward, pine trees pressing in on both sides. I knew every turn, every pothole. This was home. But as I got closer, dread settled into my bones. What if she'd already been there? The cabin appeared through the trees, and I exhaled. It looked untouched. Same weathered logs, same green shutters my father had painted, same stone chimney rising into the sky. I parked and walked up the familiar steps. The door was locked, good. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it 3 months ago. The old wooden table where my father and I used to eat breakfast. The fireplace where we'd roasted marshmallows. The rocking chair he'd made by hand. I sank into that chair and finally let myself cry. All of it. The marriage, the lies, the betrayal, came pouring out. I'd been holding it together for weeks, playing it smart like Dad taught me. But here alone I could fall apart. My phone buzzed. "Maya, are you okay?" "I'm at the cabin. It's fine. Everything's fine. Caleb's mother just posted on social media that you're a gold digger who ruined her son's life." I almost laughed. Gold digger.
Me.
The woman whose husband tried to steal her only inheritance. "Let her post whatever she wants," I said. But Maya's next words made me stand up. "She's also claiming the cabin belongs to the Hartwell family estate. She's saying your father never had legal ownership." "That's a lie." "I know it's a lie. But she's saying it publicly. With lawyers." I walked to the old filing cabinet in the corner where my father kept copies of everything. Birth certificates. Marriage licenses. And right there, in a faded manila folder, the original property deed. I photographed every page and sent them to Maya. "Post these. Let everyone see who the real owner is." While Maya worked her social media magic, I walked around the cabin, touching everything my father had built. The windowsill where I'd carved my initials at 8 years old. The bookshelf he'd made for my 10th birthday. The kitchen counter where he'd taught me to make his famous blueberry pancakes. This place was built with love. Caleb had tried to sell it like it was nothing.
My phone rang.
"Agent Morrison. Mrs. Hartwell, I wanted to inform you that we've expanded our investigation. Your husband's family appears to have been involved in the financial scheme. His brothers knew about the embezzlement and helped move money through shell companies. His whole family. They'd all been in on it. His mother? We're still investigating her involvement, but several properties in her name were purchased with suspicious funds. That's why they'd been so eager for him to sell my cabin. They needed legitimate money to hide the dirty money." "There's something else," Agent Morrison continued. "We found emails between your husband and his brothers discussing the cabin.
They knew it was protected land.
They were planning to claim ignorance and blame you if they got caught." My hands went numb. Blame me? They were going to say you'd misled them about the property status. That you'd told them it was clear to sell. They weren't just stealing from me. They were setting me up to take the fall. "Do you have proof they knew?" I asked. "Multiple emails. Phone records. Text messages. We have everything." After I hung up, I walked outside and stood at the edge of a lake. The water was calm, reflecting the sky perfectly. My father used to say still water runs deep, that quiet people had the strongest currents underneath. He was right. A car pulled up the road. My body tensed until I saw it was Maya, with another woman I didn't recognize. "This is Rebecca," Maya said as they walked up. "She's a lawyer. And after seeing what Caleb's mother posted, she wants to help." Rebecca shook my hand firmly. "I specialize in property fraud cases. And I work pro bono for women dealing with financial abuse. Your story made me angry."
"Good."
I needed angry people on my side. We sat at my father's table while Rebecca laid out the situation. The good news is you have ironclad ownership. The bad news is Caleb's family is wealthy enough to drag this through court for years. What do you recommend? Rebecca smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. We make them hurt faster than they can hurt you. We file civil suits for fraud, emotional distress, and attempted theft. We attach liens to their properties. We make their lives so legally complicated that they beg to settle. And the criminal case? Let the feds handle that. Your job is to protect yourself and make sure they can't damage your reputation. Over the next few hours, we built a strategy. Rebecca would file paperwork tomorrow. Maya would control the social media narrative. And I would give a statement to the press, my side of the story in my words. As the sun set over the lake, painting everything gold and purple, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't the quiet girl who let people walk over her anymore. I was my father's daughter. And I was done being silent. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. They're coming for the cabin tonight. Run. Who sent the warning, and could I trust them? I stared at the text message. They're coming for the cabin tonight. Run. Rebecca looked over my shoulder. Who sent that? I don't know. My fingers hovered over the screen, unsure whether to respond. Maya stood up, looking out the window at the darkening woods. Maybe it's a trap. To get you to leave, so they can break in. Or maybe someone in their family has a conscience, Rebecca said. I thought about the Hartwells. Marcus, always following Caleb's lead. Jennifer, who laughed the loudest at that dinner. Lucinda, who'd called me worthless more times than I could count. Then I remembered Caleb's youngest brother, David. The quiet one. He'd barely spoken at the dinner, hadn't cheered when Caleb announced the sale. Just stared at his plate like he wanted to disappear. I think I know who sent it, I said. Rebecca pulled out her phone. I'm calling the sheriff. If they're planning something illegal, we need law enforcement here. While she made the call, I walked through the cabin one more time. Every item, here, had a memory. The quilt my grandmother made. The fishing rod my father used every Sunday. The photographs on the wall showing 3 generations of Winslows who'd loved this place. They weren't taking this from me. Sheriff Martinez arrived 30 minutes later with a deputy. He was in his 50s, had known my father well. Ilara, he said, tipping his hat. Heard about your troubles. Your daddy would be proud of how you're handling this. I wasn't sure proud was the right word, but I appreciated it. We'll post someone outside tonight, he continued. Anyone tries anything, we'll be ready. Rebecca showed him the threatening text. He photographed it with his own phone. This could be evidence of conspiracy. I'll forward it to the federal investigators. As darkness fell completely, we waited. Maya made coffee. Rebecca reviewed documents. I sat in my father's rocking chair, watching the window. Around midnight, headlights appeared on the access road. Sheriff Martinez stood up, hand on his radio. Stay inside. 2 vehicles pulled up. I recognized Caleb's SUV. The other was Marcus's truck. They sat there for a long moment, engines running, headlights cutting through the darkness. Then Caleb got out. Sheriff Martinez stepped onto the porch. That's far enough, Mr. Hartwell. Caleb squinted against the porch light. I just want to talk to my wife. Your wife has a restraining order being filed tomorrow morning. You need to leave. This is family business. This is trespassing. The sheriff's voice was steel. On private property. With clear intent based on the threatening message she received. Now you can leave voluntarily, or I can arrest you for violating the conditions of your federal investigation. Marcus got out of his truck. You can't keep us from our own property. Your property? Sheriff Martinez pulled out his phone, showing them the deed photos I'd sent Maya. This land belongs to Ilara Winslow Hartwell. Has since her father registered it 20 years ago. You have no legal claim. I watched through the window as Caleb's face twisted with rage. He'd really believed he could intimidate me into giving up. She's ruining us, he shouted. Over a stupid cabin. No, I said, stepping onto the porch despite Rebecca's protest. You ruined yourself when you stole $500,000 from your clients. When you forged my signature. When you tried to frame me for your crimes. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. I know about the emails, I continued. The plan to blame me. To say I misled you about the property. Marcus took a step forward. The deputy moved to block him. You have 10 seconds to get back in your vehicles, Sheriff Martinez said. Or you're both spending tonight in jail. They left. But as Caleb's SUV turned around, he rolled down his window. This isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. After they were gone, Sheriff Martinez turned to me. You're staying here tonight? I nodded. This is my home. Then we're staying too, just in case they come back. That night, lying in my father's old bed, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. But the next morning brought news that changed everything. Agent Morrison called at 7 in the morning. Mrs. Hartwell, I need you to come to the federal building immediately. My stomach dropped.
Why?
What happened? Your husband tried to flee the country last night. TSA stopped him at the airport. I sat up in bed, my mind racing. He what? He had a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands and $200,000 in cash in his luggage. We arrested him at the gate. After I hung up, Maya found me staring at the wall. Elara? He tried to run. To leave the country. She sat beside me. With what money? That was the question, wasn't it? If the feds had frozen his accounts, where did $200,000 in cash come from? Rebecca arrived an hour later with answers. I've been digging into the Hartwell family finances. Lucinda has been moving assets for weeks. Selling jewelry, liquidating investments, pulling cash from safe deposit boxes. She was funding his escape, I said. Looks like it. Which means she knew about everything. The embezzlement, the fraud, all of it. By noon, the story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even a mention on a national business network. The Hartwell family empire was collapsing in real time. Lucinda's social media went dark. Marcus and Jennifer stopped posting. The family that had stood together at that dinner, applauding my humiliation, was fracturing. My phone rang. Unknown number again. This time I answered. Elara? The voice was young, uncertain. David.
Yeah.
I needed to call you. To apologize. Caleb's youngest brother. The one who'd warned me. That was you. The text. I didn't know what they were planning.
Not all of it.
I swear. He sounded like he was crying. When I found out about the embezzlement, about the cabin, I told Caleb he was insane. He laughed at me. Why didn't you go to the police? Silence. Then, because they're my family. And I'm a coward. I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't. David had always been different from his brothers. Quieter.
Kinder.
The text you sent saved me, I said. That took courage. Mom's planning something, he blurted out. I don't know what, but she's been meeting with lawyers. Expensive ones. She keeps saying the Hartwell name won't be destroyed by some mountain girl. Some mountain girl. After everything, she still saw me as beneath them. Let her plan, I said. I have the law on my side. She doesn't care about the law. She cares about winning. After we hung up, Rebecca looked concerned. What did he say? I repeated the conversation. She cursed under her breath. Lucinda Hartwell is old money. She has connections, resources. If she's going after you, it won't be legal. What do you mean? I mean she'll try to destroy your reputation. Spread lies. Make you look like the villain. These people don't fight fair. She was right. By evening, anonymous accounts started posting about me online, calling me a gold digger, saying I'd seduced Caleb to steal his family's wealth, claiming the cabin was bought with Hartwell money. All lies. But lies spread faster than truth. Maya worked to counter them, posting the evidence, the deed, the timeline. But for every truth she shared, 10 more lies appeared. We need to go public, Rebecca said. A real interview. Your story, your voice unfiltered. With who? I have a contact at Channel 7. Investigative journalism. They've been following the Hartwell case and want to hear from you. The thought terrified me. I'd spent my life being quiet, staying in the background. But silence had almost cost me everything. Set it up, I said. The interview was scheduled for 2 days later. In the meantime, more news broke. Federal agents raided Lucinda's estate, seizing documents and financial records. Marcus and Jennifer were called in for questioning. The web of fraud was bigger than anyone realized. That night, I stood on the cabin's porch, watching the stars reflect on the lake. My father used to say the truth was like starlight, constant, even when clouds tried to hide it. I hoped he was right. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. When I played it, my blood turned to ice. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts. By the time I'm done, no one will believe a word you say. Lucinda's voice.
Cold.
Venomous. Promising war. What happens when you stop being quiet and start fighting back? The Channel 7 studios felt like another world. Bright lights, cameras, people rushing around with clipboards. I sat in the green room, my hands shaking, wondering if I was making a mistake. Maya squeezed my shoulder. You've got this. Just tell the truth. The interviewer, Sarah Chin, was known for her tough but fair reporting. She'd broken stories about corporate fraud, political corruption, abuse of power. If anyone could handle the Hartwell family's narrative, it was her. She shook my hand warmly. Thank you for trusting us with your story. When the cameras started rolling, she didn't waste time with softball questions. Alara, your husband and his family have painted you as vindictive, as someone who's destroying them out of spite.
What do you say to that?
I took a breath, remembering my father's voice. Fight smart. I say the documents speak for themselves. My husband forged my signature to sell property that wasn't his. He embezzled money from his clients. He tried to flee the country. Those are facts, not vindictiveness. His mother claims the cabin was purchased with Hartwell family money. She's lying. I pulled out copies of the deed, the original purchase agreement, my father's bank statements from 20 years ago. My father, Ronan Winslow, bought that land with money he saved over 15 years working as a carpenter. Every document proves it. Sarah examined the papers on camera. These appear authentic. Because they are. The Hartwells are trying to rewrite history because they can't accept they got caught. Let's talk about the dinner. The night your husband announced he'd sold your cabin. I closed my eyes briefly, remembering. They applauded. His entire family cheered while he told me he'd sold the only thing I had left of my father. They thought it was funny that I'd contributed to their expensive meal with money stolen from me. How did that feel? Like I'd married into a family that saw me as something to use and discard. The interview lasted an hour. Sarah asked hard questions but fair ones. By the end, I felt emptied out but somehow lighter. When it aired that night, the response was immediate. Social media exploded. The anonymous hate accounts went quiet. People started digging up the Hartwell family's history, other business deals that seemed shady, other people they'd hurt over the years. Rebecca called, excited. Alara, this is perfect. The court of public opinion is turning. 3 of Caleb's former clients reached out to me today. They want to join a class action lawsuit. But Lucinda wasn't done. 2 days after the interview, a tabloid published a hit piece on me. Anonymous sources claiming I'd been having an affair, that I'd planned the whole thing, that I was mentally unstable. I knew where it came from. Lucinda had money and connections. She'd bought herself a counter-narrative. Don't respond, Rebecca advised. Let them look desperate. We have the truth. But it hurt. Reading lies about myself, knowing people might believe them. Then something unexpected happened. David went public. He gave an interview to the same tabloid that had attacked me, except he told the real story. How his family had planned the cabin sale. How they'd known about the embezzlement. How his mother had tried to help Caleb flee. My family is corrupt, he said on camera. And I'm ashamed I stayed silent as long as I did. Alara Hartwell is the victim here, not the villain. The tabloid tried to bury his interview, but social media found it. Within hours, it was everywhere. Marcus called me furious. You turned my brother against us. No, I said calmly. You did that yourselves. Agent Morrison called with an update. We're filing formal charges against your husband, his brothers, and your mother-in-law. Conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement, and aiding a fugitive. All of them. All of them. David's testimony sealed it. I thought about the family that had mocked me at that dinner. How they'd stood together in their certainty that they were untouchable. They'd been wrong. That week, I filed for divorce. Rebecca made sure it was airtight. No alimony for Caleb, no claim on my assets, complete separation. He'll fight it, she warned. Let him. From prison. The trial date was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, I focused on rebuilding my life. I started the business I'd always dreamed of, helping families preserve historic properties, teaching them how to protect their land from people like the Hartwells. The cabin became my office. The place my father built became the foundation of something new. One afternoon, while I was working on a client's property preservation documents, Maya called. Turn on Channel 7.
Now.
I pulled up the live stream on my laptop. Sarah Chun was reporting breaking news. Lucinda Hartwell has been arrested on additional charges of witness tampering and attempted bribery. Sources say she tried to pay off federal investigators to drop the charges against her sons. I watched Lucinda being led out of her mansion in handcuffs, her face twisted with rage. The woman who'd called me worthless was now facing 20 years in prison. Justice, it turned out, had perfect timing. But the final twist in the Hartwell family saga was still to come. The call came on a Tuesday morning.
Caleb wanted to talk.
His lawyer said he had information the prosecutors would want, a plea deal in exchange for testimony against his family. Don't go, Maya said immediately. But Agent Morrison thought differently. He might have evidence we need. And you'd be protected. Recorded conversation, law enforcement present. Rebecca agreed to come with me. We met at the federal building, in a secure room with cameras and witnesses. Caleb looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 months. Prison orange didn't suit him. His hair was grayer, his face hollow. Thank you for coming, he said quietly.
I didn't respond.
Just sat across from him, waiting. I need you to know I never meant to hurt you. I got in over my head. You stole from your clients and forged my signature. That's not getting in over your head. That's crime. He flinched. My family pushed me. From the beginning. Dad, before he died, always said a Hartwell never settles for less. We had to be successful, powerful, rich. When my business started struggling, I panicked. So you destroyed mine to save yours. I thought I could fix it all before anyone knew. But the hole kept getting deeper. Agent Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Hartwell, you said you had information. Caleb pulled out a folder. My mother kept records. Every shady deal, every bribe, every stolen dollar. She documented everything insurance, she called it, in case any of us tried to turn on her. Rebecca grabbed the folder. Inside were ledgers, bank statements, photographs of documents. Years of fraud, tax evasion, bribery. Where did you get these? Agent Morrison asked. David. He found them in Mom's safe and copied everything. He sent them to me in prison. I thought about David, the quiet brother who'd finally found his voice. Why are you giving them to us? I asked Caleb. He looked at me with something like regret. Because you were right. At that dinner, when you smiled and said, enjoy it while it lasts. You knew exactly what was going to happen. You knew we'd destroy ourselves. I knew you'd underestimated me. We did. I did. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Alara. For everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I stood up. I don't forgive you. But I also don't hate you anymore. You're just someone I used to know who made terrible choices. As I walked out, Agent Morrison caught up with me. These documents change everything. With this evidence, we can expand the investigation to include the Hartwell family's entire business empire. How long will they go to prison? Your husband is looking at 10 years minimum. His brothers, similar sentences. Lucinda? He whistled low. With witness tampering, fraud, conspiracy, and now this new evidence? She might never get out. The final trial was 6 months later. I attended every day, sitting in the back row, watching the family that had humiliated me face justice. The prosecution presented mountains of evidence. Forged documents, financial records, witness testimony. David testified against his own family, his voice shaking but steady. The defense tried everything: character assassination, procedural challenges, claims of entrapment. Nothing worked. When the verdicts came, they came fast. Caleb, guilty on all counts. 12 years. Marcus, guilty. 10 years. Jennifer, guilty of conspiracy. 5 years. Lucinda, guilty on 17 counts. 25 years. I watched Lucinda's face as the judge read her sentence. For the first time since I'd known her, she had nothing to say. No cutting remarks, no dismissive waves. Just silence. The same silence she'd mocked me for having. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me. I gave one statement. Justice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be true. That night, I drove back to Hollow Ridge, to the cabin that had started everything. I lit a fire in the old stone fireplace and sat in my father's rocking chair, watching the flames dance. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Thank you for not giving up. You taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about doing what's right. I smiled. Somewhere, my father was smiling too. The cabin stood strong, just like he built it too. And so did I. What would you sacrifice to protect what matters most? A year after the trials ended, life looked different. The cabin had become more than my office. It was a symbol. I'd started a nonprofit helping abuse survivors protect their assets from predatory family members. We provided legal resources, financial counseling, and property protection services. Maya became my partner in the venture. Rebecca handled all our legal work pro bono. Together, we'd helped over 100 families secure their futures. David occasionally volunteered, using his accounting background to help clients understand their finances. He'd legally changed his last name, cutting ties with the Hartwell legacy completely. How do you do it? He asked me one afternoon while we sorted through client files. How do you not hate all of us? I thought about it. Hate takes energy I don't have. I'd rather build something good than tear myself apart with anger. He nodded slowly. You're stronger than anyone in my family ever was. The business grew. We got featured in magazines, won awards, even had other states asking us to expand. But I kept the main office in that cabin by the lake, the place where it all started. One spring morning, I was planting flowers in the garden when a car pulled up. A woman stepped out, probably mid-40s, looking nervous. Ilara Winslow? That's me. I saw your story about your husband and the cabin. She twisted her hands together. My ex-husband is trying to take my mother's house. He's claiming we bought it together, but it was her property before we married. I don't know what to do. I smiled and gestured toward the cabin. Come inside. Let's talk. We spent 2 hours going through her documents. By the end, we had a clear strategy and proof her ex-husband was lying. How much do I owe you? She asked. First consultation is free. After that, we work on a sliding scale based on what you can afford. She started crying. You don't know what this means. I thought I was going to lose everything. I handed her a tissue. I do know. That's why we do this. After she left, I stood on the porch, looking out at the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the sky like glass. A hawk circled overhead, riding the wind. My phone rang. Unknown number. For a second, my old instincts kicked in: fear, anxiety. Then I remembered I wasn't that person anymore. Hello, Mrs. Hartwell? This is Melissa Grant from the State Attorney General's office. We're investigating financial elder abuse cases and heard about your organization. We'd like to partner with you. By summer, our little nonprofit had expanded into 3 states. We hired more staff, opened satellite offices, trained volunteers. The cabin remained the heart of it all, but our reach grew wider every day. I still got hate mail sometimes, usually from people who thought I'd been too hard on the Hartwells, who believed family should forgive anything. I read them once and filed them away. Their opinions didn't change the truth. On the anniversary of that dinner, the night Caleb announced he'd sold my cabin, I drove to the cemetery where my father was buried. Hey, Dad, I said, kneeling by his headstone. I want to tell you something. The cabin you built? It saved my life. Not just from Caleb, but from being someone who stays quiet when staying quiet means losing everything. The wind rustled through the trees, sounding almost like a voice. You taught me to build things that last. I'm trying to do that. Not just buildings, but lives. Futures. Hope. I placed fresh flowers on his grave and stood. Thank you for teaching me to fight smart instead of loud. It made all the difference. That evening, Maya, Rebecca, David, and a few other friends gathered at the cabin for dinner. We cooked together, laughed, told stories. It felt like family, the kind you choose, the kind that chooses you back. As the sun set over the lake, painting everything gold and purple, Rebecca raised her glass. To Alara, who proved that the quietest voice can speak the loudest truth. We clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from a new client. My husband is trying to sell my grandmother's jewelry without permission.
Can you help?
I typed back immediately.
Yes. Come see me tomorrow.
We'll figure this out together. Because that's what I did now. I helped people protect what mattered. I turned betrayal into purpose, pain into power, silence into strength. The cabin still stood by the lake, solid and true. And so did I. Some stories end with revenge. Mine ended with restoration. And that, I learned, was the best justice of all. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next powerful story. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up against betrayal? Your story might inspire someone else going through the same thing. And remember, being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon you have. See you in the next story.